All right, man, peace. So, brothers, in the history of professional team sports, especially in America, there are always particular players on championship teams whose contribution to that team's championship get lost in the annals of time for whatever reason. Maybe the media does not want to market that role player or that pivotal player as much as the superstar or the star. But for those of us who are eyewitnesses to that team's run to a championship, we'll always understand what that particular player meant to that team. And I mean, throughout history, we know players like that or performers like that. Whether it be, for example, Andy Pettitte on the 1990s New York Yankees. He doesn't get mentioned as much as Derek Jeter, but we know how important and how pivotal Andy Pettitte was. With the Chicago Bulls, especially in the early 1990s, you had Horace Grant. Or especially in the first couple of championships, John Paxson, whose toughness and ability to hit wide open mid-range or long-range shots spread the floor in the triangle and gave Jordan room to work in the mid-post. The 49ers of the late 1980s, you had a wide receiver by the name of John Taylor, who was just about every bit as talented as Jerry Rice, but he wasn't as ballyhoo because, of course, he didn't put up as big of numbers, and he did not have that alpha persona that Jerry Rice had. Well, on the 2020 LA Lakers, many people will try to poo-poo or downplay the importance of Rajon Rondo's contribution, but for those of us who watched the Lakers win last year's championship, we know for a fact that they would not have won that championship without Rajon Rondo. One can make the case that minute for minute, Rajon Rondo may have been the best player on the Lakers or the most impactful player on the Lakers per minute that he played over the course of that bubble championship run that the Lakers made last year. I thought that he was everywhere he needed to be at the moment that he needed to be there. He was much more clutch in crucial moments than LeBron James or even AD, who I thought was their best player overall. But pound for pound, inch for inch, minute for minute, I thought that Rajon Rondo brought the highest potency of contribution to their championship run. Definitely higher than LeBron's, who basically just stat padded his way to another NBA Finals MVP. But that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, for whatever reason, Rajon Rondo, who was not brought back by the Lakers to their team, seemingly was going to sign with the Clippers and mysteriously ended up with the Atlanta Hawks. Now, there's some innuendo that has been propagated as to why he ended up with the Hawks, which is very believable. That being that LeBron James understood how important a piece Rajon Rondo would be, especially for the Clippers, who desperately need leadership and a point guard. So through his machinations in association with Rich Paul, they maneuvered Rondo over to the Atlanta Hawks. But as Mr. Shannon Sharp likes to say, LeBron James is #1 fan. Sometimes a man can find his destiny on the very road that he chooses to avoid it. And that is why Mr. Rajon Rondo has landed on the team that he always should have been on in the first place, that being the LA Clippers. And I think that it is a phenomenal move for their team. A point guard is basically all they're missing. They desperately needed one. They desperately needed someone with championship pedigree, experience, and an alpha personality, especially in the locker room, because Kawhi Leonard does not have any of those things. And we'll see. I thought that the Clippers would have beaten the Lakers last year had the whole pandemic not occurred. I think that they will beat the Lakers this year should they meet up in the playoffs, but we'll see. The Lakers might not even get that far just looking at their injury history over the course of this season. You know, sometimes teams, proverbially speaking, sell their souls to win a championship. Most of LeBron James' teams have been like that. They win these wild, strange, quirky championships, and that's why it's so difficult for his teams to repeat. Because many of his championship teams did not deserve to be the champion in the first place. So we'll see what happens down the stretch of this season. The Lakers, it would not surprise me to see them get knocked out of the playoffs by the Utah Jazz, by the Phoenix Suns, or by the LA Clippers. I thought the Denver Nuggets got way better, even though I thought that they should have gone all in on trying to acquire Bradley Beal. To me, if they could have packaged a couple of first-round draft picks, Michael Porter Jr., Gary Harris, a couple of those extra players that they have, they probably would have been able to score Bradley Beal. But I do like the acquisition of Aaron Gordon. But just getting back to the point of this video, we're going to see Shannon Sharp in a state of denial because, you know, he has a lot of angst. He's embedded himself, he's immersed himself in this new LA rivalry between the Lakers and the Clippers. So now he's going to act as if the Rajon Rondo acquisition is not a big deal when it is. And the fact of the matter is that he knows how important Rondo is going to be for the Clippers because he was very happy and excited when Rondo did not sign with the Clippers at the start of this season. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from LA. Anthony Tapp here with Skip. Good morning. Happy Friday, guys.
Good morning.
Well, I guess I have to pull this out of mothballs, shake it out a little bit here, get it ready for the NBA Finals. If I could, let's see.
I would personally love to see a Clippers-Nets Finals. That would be very fun and exciting to watch. I wouldn't care who won the finals at all. Just as long as I don't have to see LeBron, Ramon James back in the damn finals, man. I'm so sick of that guy and his nonsense.
Got a city jersey here. This isn't purple and gold. This is the Clippers. The Clippers are back in business. Happy days are here again. Playoff Rondo is where he rightfully belongs. In the basement with the Clippers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Skip?
Yeah.
Was there anybody available yesterday that the teams really wanted? Why wasn't Nikola Jokic on the market? Why wasn't LeBron, the AD?
Why are you changing the...
Shannon Sharp, he really needs to run many of his attempts at a counter-argument past his producers before he says things. Because the brother, he's like the Reggie Jackson of sports analysts. He either knocks it out the park or he says some of the dumbest shit that you've ever heard. He absolutely strikes out. Why the hell would Nikola Jokic be available on the trade market? Is that an attempt to downplay the fact that certain players got traded and that if they were really that good, they would not have been on the trading block? Does that make sense? As the old saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure. When you're looking at teams that feel like they're a player away from the championship, that doesn't mean that they're a superstar player away. They might just be a role player away.
It was the only move of the day that anybody cared about. Rondo to the...
Oh, Rondo was a big move. Huh?
He was a big move for the Clippers, yes.
That is true. It is
that's
what
what you're
everyone
talking
was
about.
talking about. It is what we are about to talk about. How about this? Rajon Rondo is returning to the city he just won a title in, but not the team he won a title with. Skip just pointed out with that jersey. Yesterday, the LA Clippers acquired Rondo from the Atlanta Hawks.
There were moments in that playoff run last year in the NBA bubble where Rondo was dominant.
For Lou Williams and 2 future second-round picks, Rondo will provide some pass-first leadership out of the guard spot, something Clippers coach Ty Lue is very excited about, telling reporters he's fiery. That's what we need. And Skip, I know you think it's a good move. I saw you tweet last night. Congrats, Clippers. You just won your first NBA championship, which means I gotta ask Shannon how he feels about that. Shannon, does Rondo make the Clippers the favorite?
Now look at here what Skip Bayless states. He says, congrats Clippers, you just won your first NBA championship. You finally got Rondo. The magic move I campaigned for through the offseason. Now Skip Bayless, not to digress, like every major contributor on mainstream television who's allowed to ascend to a high level, is a Saturnian. That's why he wears all black every Friday. He tries to cover it with this facade of being a so-called Christian. But like all other high-level media personalities, including his partner Shannon Sharp, he is a Luciferian. And that's why they'll sneak in certain phrases like that, the magic move. Skip Bayless understands that, certain players have a particular quality to them that is assessed by high-level GMs, especially like a Jerry West, and a certain magical component is associated with that player.
It's in the West.
No, 5 cases right now, they don't win a title.
5 cases.
5 cases.
Let's just do the West. I'll take him in the West.
Okay, 5 cases.
5. Got
5
it.
cases.
Boom. Thank you.
No, Skip, he doesn't
That's Shannon Sharp betting with his heart again instead of his brain.
make them the favorite. Rondo, AD, healthy. LeBron and AD the Lakers are still the favorite in the West. Now,
They might be the favorite, but are they the better team?
like some of the moves, the Nuggets, I like what they did. I like the JaVale McGee. I understand they get Aaron Gordon, a big body, can bang with LeBron, Kawhi, or Paul George. But for this situation, Rondo, he's averaging less than 4 points a game on 40% shooting. He's 3.5 assists, 15 minutes.
You cannot assess Rajon Rondo by his regular season stats, Shannon Sharp. You should know that better than anyone. You were trying to have Rajon Rondo traded last regular season, and look at what he did for you in the playoffs.
All career lows while he's missed 17 games. Now, at some point he's going to miss some more time. The question is, Skip, how does Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, with the most sensitive and thinnest of skins, take Rondo when he shoots them straight?
Do you have any precedent for this assertion that Kawhi Leonard is thin-skinned? Other than that situation that occurred in San Antonio where basically there was an attempt by the entire organization to demonize him as someone who was faking an injury? Is there any other data that says that Kawhi Leonard is thin-skinned, quote-unquote? You can't have it both ways. You can't compare the guy to a robot and an android and a cyborg and then, to try to conform him to your new narrative pertaining to him that he's quote-unquote mentally weak or sensitive. Now, I understand it to a degree with Paul George, but let's keep one thing in mind. Kawhi Leonard has championship-level pedigree. This is not just some regular player. When we're talking about Paul George, this is a player who has helped lead his teams to Eastern Conference Finals appearances. So let's put a little bit more respect on Paul George's name. Now, he made a mistake when he acknowledged that he was suffering some psychological difficulties while in the NBA bubble last season. But at the end of the day, if Paul George is your second best player on a team that has Kawhi Leonard on it and also a Serge Ibaka and now a Rajon Rondo, that's a championship caliber team.
Y'all are not playing well. Y'all are not where you're supposed to be. How do they handle that? Because we saw what happened.
Well, by all accounts, Kawhi Leonard has always held himself accountable. Even his Clippers teammates from last season stated that they were shocked by how much Kawhi Leonard would hold himself responsible in film sessions where he would say, that's my fault. Those are things that you learn when playing on the Spurs for 6-7 years.
They got Trez up out of there. They got Sweet Lou up out of there. JaMychal Green's gone. Everybody that might have said, come on, guys. Y'all need to hold up y'all end of the bargain.
So wait a minute. Now JaMychal Green and Lemon Pepper Lou Williams and Montrez Lip Piercing Harrell, they're the barometer for accountability. That's what you're telling me.
Oh. So Rondo, Skip, Rondo is very mercurial. He gonna tell you straight. And it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, especially if you're not used to his abrasive style of leadership. It's not for everybody, but it's tried and true. He's been with some...
Oh, is it? It's tried and true, Shannon Sharp? So now suddenly it's tried and true for a player to be confrontational in their leadership style. But you spent about a month and a half demonizing Michael Jordan for that same leadership style. I got you.
You got to be strong-minded. Think about Skip. He's with KG and Paul Pierce. He's with Braun. He's with AD. So you have to be strong-minded to be able to deal with him. And so that's we're going to see how that shakes out. Skip, I just don't know if Rondo, Atlanta couldn't wait to get him. Atlanta outbid everybody. Gave him a 2-year deal when no one else had more than 1 year on the table for him.
The reason why Atlanta wanted him so badly is because they thought that maybe he could be a mentor for that shot jacker Trae Young, the same shot jacker that you like so much, Shannon Sharp. The same shot jacker that Nate McMillan has finally put some handcuffs on and helped him figure out that his best attribute, his best characteristic is his passing, not his shooting. He is not a great shooter. Now, if he's wide open, yeah, he can be a very potent scorer. But he's someone who thinks that he's Steph Curry and he's not. And finally, they got a coach to put the shackles on his ass and help him figure out that the best thing that you do is pass the basketball. That's why they brought Rajon in the first place, hoping that Rajon could be a positive influence on Trae Young's style of play. And obviously, they said to themselves after they got Nate McMillan and they saw that Trae Young was starting to capitulate to how Nate McMillan wanted him to play, and on top of that, that Rajon was not going to be worth the amount of money that they were paying him, he became expendable. So it works out for everyone.
Says, you know what? We got a nice solid guy to back up Trae Young, so we don't have to have Trae playing 38, 40 minutes a game. And Skip, it didn't work out well. Rondo has been a major disappointment in Atlanta. Maybe because he went there. It's hard going from a championship team to the Hawks. But he goes to a team now, but he doesn't make them the favorites, Skip.
According to you, he does not make them the favorites. The Clippers were hovering around being, somewhere between 4 to 5 games behind the so-called best team in the Western Conference without a point guard that they desperately needed. I think that this might be the move that could take them over the hump, but we'll find out. I need to see how they match up against Utah. I believe that they've beaten Utah already this season, maybe more than once.
Sorry, I don't like to break bad news to you first thing in the morning, because I feel like it's somewhat of a downer that I'm starting your day off like this. But you're not the best team in the West, and you're not going to be the representative in the NBA Finals coming out of the West.
Look at Skip. Skip want to laugh.
That's that.
That's that.
It is my turn, and forgive me because I got so excited as we opened the show, I just tore my mic right off, so I'm going to hold it because...
Yeah, I noticed. It sounded like he was talking in the cave. Skip Bayless got so excited at the prospect of LeBron James getting knocked out the playoffs. he damn near bust his Mike's cherry. He bust his Mike's hymen.
I'm going to hold you hostage as I go right here. And I'm going to set you, I'm going to shoot you straight on what just happened.
Okay.
In the biggest picture, the great Jerry West, who once upon a time was the architect of the Los Angeles Lakers and one of the greatest Lakers who ever played, and he remains to this day the logo of this league.
The logo.
Maybe we should change that, but that's a whole different topic for another day. But the great Jerry West, over the last 4 years, has overseen the Los Angeles Clippers. For a while, he oversaw Golden State, and you saw them take off into their dynastic days, and here come...
He also was the mastermind behind the Memphis Grizzlies and their rise to semi-prominence in the mid to late 2000s.
Clippers. I believe that Jerry West bamboozled the Lakers and the entire NBA for Rajon Rondo. What happened during the last free agent period? Did I not come in here day after day and pound this table? The Clippers need Rondo. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I said he could be the head of the snake that they do not have.
Right.
As much as I love Kawhi Leonard, as much as he can distribute the basketball, he leads them in assists as we speak right now.
Right.
He's not a point guard.
No.
He's not a point forward. No. And he's not a leader of a basketball team. I've said that from the start. No. He grew up in the shadows of Duncan and Parker and Ginobili.
Right.
And he was a great young player and a defensive player of the year and a finals MVP, but he was not the leader of the Spurs. No. He did become somewhat the leader of a team that is still run by Kyle Lowry in Toronto, and they did break through, but they got a lot of breaks because they got a lot of injuries on the other side.
Literally breaks.
Literal breaks.
The Toronto Raptors, their 2019 championship run was charmed, to say the least. They definitely were very fortunate. Whoever was working those witchcraft spells for them, whether it was Masai Ujiri or whoever it was, Nick Nurse, Kawhi Leonard's handler at the time, Nick Nurse. You know, whenever you hear that alliteration, a lot of times that's a handler or someone prominent within the craft. They did their thing because Klay Thompson went down, Kevin Durant went down, everything went their way.
Literal breaks that they got. God bless all of them. But Paul George, I told you from the start, he can turn into George Paul. He can turn into Pandemic P. For a while last night against my Spurs, he was Pandemic P, and then he made a couple shots at the end, and they won back-to-back in San Antonio.
The thing with the thing about Paul George is that you have to look at him for his overall floor game. You can't depend on him as an offensive player, especially in a big stretch. He's very much like Scottie Pippen. He's someone who you have to look at his offense in pivotal games as extra and just hope that he's dominant on the defensive end, going after loose balls, etc.
But the point is, Paul George is nothing but a complimentary star who is not the leader of a basketball team.
Agreed.
So, Ty Lue is now the coach, and Ty Lue, once upon a time, was the mentor of a young Rajon Rondo in Boston under Doc Rivers when Ty was Doc's lead assistant.
He was.
And up came Rajon Rondo. And you want to talk about the gumption this kid had? The you-know-whats this kid had? To stand up to, wait a second, to Paul and Ray and KG and just tell them, no, sit your you-know-what down. I got this, right? And Ty Lue had to sort of govern him and show him the ropes and teach him the way. But he took over and they broke through and won a chip.
The only way that Rajon Rondo would ever have been respected in that locker room is if he would have had the gumption to look Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett in their face and show them that he was just as ferocious and competitive as them. Because both of those players have an alpha personality. You're never going to be able to tell Paul Pierce that LeBron James is a better player than him, or Dwayne Wade, or Kobe Bryant. And that's the reason why he got the one championship that he got. Because he never believed that those players were better than him. Same thing with Kevin Garnett. You're never going to tell him that Tim Duncan was better than him, or Chris Webber, or Karl Malone, or whoever.
And last year, the harder I looked last night at what Rondo did for your team, he was the essential ingredient for you in the bubble, and especially in the finals. My goodness. I look at this. He had 19 points in the closeout game against Miami with 4 rebounds and 4 assists. He had 16 points in game 2, which was a crucial game against Miami. My point is, every time I looked up in the playoffs, he was making a key 3 or just some key basketball play. It could be a steal. It could be a pass. It just could be a play that you said, well, they don't have anybody who makes that play.
He was everywhere, and not just in the finals.
LeBron is, as great as AD has been, it took playoff Rondo to catalyze the Lakers in the bubble. Am I right?
He definitely was the prime mover, so that's a great term to use. He was the catalyst.
Yeah, but Skip, here's the thing, though. You couldn't play LeBron 48 minutes. And plus, because Rondo had been in those situations, it was a lot easier. They trusted him, having been the point guard on a starting championship team.
I understand.
Right, but that's Skip's point. He's not just a guy. Just for LeBron to trust him as, a prime mover, as an initiator of the offense, as the brain trust out there, shows you how big of a contributor he was, Shannon Sharpe. That's the point.
But he made them fly in the bubble, and he's going to make these Clippers fly. And I told you, they don't have, you said it from the start, and I have not disagreed with you. Patrick Beverley, I don't even know what he is. He's not a point guard. No. He's just a little bulldog, pit bull of a defender.
He's an irritant, that's it. Pat Bev can give you a good 10 to 15 minutes.
What he is. He's a disruptor. He's an agitator, and he brings a lot of life to that team. And he's still on that team. They didn't trade Pat Beverley for Rondo. They traded a Lou Williams, he always had an old man's game, but now he looks a little more like an old man than he ever.
Exactly, and he did last year in the bubble also. Lou Will is about done, and that's nothing personal against him. But Lou Will does not have a championship DNA. He's not someone who brings championship intangibles to the table. He's a great regular season player.
At 35.
He going home.
Okay, he's going back to Atlanta. He grew up in a suburb. And what did you nickname him in the bubble?
Oh, Lemon Pepper.
Lemon Pepper Lou. And that was the beginning of the end of Lou as a Clipper, because I don't think that organization ever quite got over that.
That is tough.
Nor should they have. That's why it's so interesting that supposedly Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell are the arbiters for competitiveness for the LA Clippers, when they're the ones who, to be quite honest with you, were the most egregious in their lack of competitive spirit. Montrezl Harrell taking his sweet time to report to the team when he knew that they were all trying to win a championship, supposedly because his grandmother, when he clearly did not want to be there. Then you have Lou Williams, who can't guard a statue, not only running his mouth and acting as if he's the real captain of the team, but going to strip clubs in the middle of a so-called pandemic or plandemic. Makes no sense. They were counterproductive to the advancement of the team. And they were a prime example of players who wanted to be on a good team but did not want to really be on a championship team, because none of their habits showed you that they understood how to be the role players that they needed to be on a championship team.
Tough, Skip, because the guys, you're like, okay, we're going to compete for a title, and here's you out there bullshitting.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's exactly what it was. So the great Jerry West tried to fit Rondo under their cap, but they just didn't have the exception to be able to pay him the way the Hawks could pay him.
He wanted 2 years.
Okay, he wanted 2 years. The Lakers did not have the money to pay him, and I'm pretty sure they wanted to keep Rondo if they could.
For 2 years.
So he goes to Atlanta, and he gets paid, but I am convinced, I do not know this for a fact, I'm educated guessing on this, that Jerry West said, hey, take your money and run to Atlanta, and we'll do our darndest to come and get you at the trade deadline so you can have your cake and eat it too.
That's highly possible. I also have to wonder if Jerry West was in constant communication with the general manager of the Atlanta Hawks to let them know, look, you guys have an asset that we want. I understand that you want to try to utilize him as a mentor for your young guard. If things don't work out around the trade deadline later on this season, give us a call, because we'll definitely be in touch.
Because, okay, so to your point, you just rattled off his stats in Atlanta. He just got paid. That's all it was. He didn't want to play behind Trae Young. Come on. Rajon Rondo just won a ring for the Lakers. He wants to sit behind Trae Young, who has one of the highest usage rates in the league, and is a turnover machine. He doesn't want to do that.
It was his team.
Okay, it's his team, and Rondo's been playing 15 minutes a night.
Shannon Sharpe is such a damn toxic-ass Trae Young fan. It's so annoying. And people like him don't realize Trae Young only becomes a better player when he's confronted with the truth about the futility of his style of play. It's like, dude, you're 5'11", and you're trying to take 30 shots a game. No team is ever going to get close to a championship with a point guard like that, a so-called point guard like that. I mean, other than in singular situations where all of the other teammates are compelled to go along with that offensive paradigm, like in Allen Iverson in 01.
4-2-4, he has been mailing it in.
Yeah.
He has been on ice in Atlanta, just sort of biding his time and staying fresh for the stretch run with the Lakers.
Absolutely. That's why you cannot evaluate Rondo by his regular season numbers.
And again,
You mean for the Clippers?
for the Clippers, sorry. And against the Lakers. And the point is that I was afraid they were going to have to give up a bigger piece like Marcus Morris Sr. No, just lemon pepper Lou.
Right.
And again, he's had a little bit of a resurgence, which actually helped his trade value over the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously why Tyronn Lue had been giving him more playing time, more minutes to showcase him.
Pretty good. He just doesn't look the same to me. He never was an explosive athlete,
Right.
but he's 35 years old.
Right.
So is Rondo. But Rondo looks just the same as he looked in Boston.
Well, but the difference is, Skip, they count on Sweet Lou to go give them 13 to 15 points off the bench on a nightly basis. They're never going to expect Rondo to give them that. He just needs to get them in and out of the right sets. If he can do that, but Skip, I believe this.
He has to do a bit more than that, Shannon Sharp, because he did a lot more than that in the playoff run for the Lakers last year. They're going to expect Rajon Rondo to be an impact player for their offense and for their defense, especially down the stretch of games where the Clippers have taken on this moniker of a choking team.
Move they almost had to do because you mortgage so much of your future with Paul George, with Kawhi.
No doubt.
Remember, Kawhi can walk after this season. Skip, his winner now.
So can Paul George.
Who's to say if they don't win it this year, Kawhi, like, man, hold on. Now, we done had 2 years to try to get this thing right.
Agreed.
So,
agreed. You
yeah,
had to do it.
Right.
And they did it. They pulled it off.
Right.
The way I wanted them to pull it off going into the season. But guess what? They've been pretty good this year. You can say they just treaded water, but they've treaded water right in there as the 3 seed,
Right.
about to be the 2 seed. They're moving up
Yes.
on everybody. And the point is that the Los Angeles Clippers are still leading the league in three-point shooting. They are still leading the league in free throw shooting. And over the last 6 games, very quietly, sort of off camera, under the radar, would you believe they are leading the league in defensive efficiency over the last 6 games? They're starting to click on defense.
Yeah, but you ain't list the teams they played. San Antonio, some bums.
Well,
Doesn't what great defensive teams do is they shut down the bad teams. When you go against great offensive teams, of course, your defensive metrics are not going to look as good, Shannon Sharp. But in any sport, if you're ranked number 1 in the league in defense, it's because you're shutting down the bad offensive teams.
bums.
Yes.
They're the 8 seed. Is that bums?
Bumish.
Really?
Bumish.
Oh, Shannon Sharp just called these Spurs bums. We'll see how that happens. We'll see if you meet the bums in the playoffs and see how you handle the bums.
Hold on, Skip.
Yeah.
So you expect, say, if the Lakers were to meet the Spurs,
Yeah, you'd have your hands
healthy
full.
AD and LeBron.
And a healthy Spurs. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah, if you got a healthy young Tim Duncan, maybe.
You know how hard it is to go into San Antonio and win back-to-back? It is hard, and the Clippers did it.
Skip, they only having 2 people there.
And
There
by
wasn't
the
no
way,
fans.
the Clippers last night, speaking of having no people there was no Serge Ibaka, and there's no Patrick Beverly, and there was no Kawhi Leonard last night, and there was no Marcus Morris Sr., and they still won because they're the deepest team in basketball.
That's impressive. I didn't even know they were missing all those players. Once again, I think that the best NBA Finals matchup that the league could hope for if they want quality will be Clippers versus Nets. Now, if you're talking about marketability, then it'd be Lakers versus Nets.
See the difference in the ball game. You see Reggie Jackson. When you let Reggie Jackson don't have to worry about distributing, he can just go get buckets.
Reggie Jackson is an idiot. They should have traded him. I mean, trade him for anything.
He plays.
I think he was still supposed to worry about distributing, but he just didn't. He just shoots it.
That ain't him, Skip.
He's
That ain't-
the
Reggie Jackson has the most overinflated opinion of himself of any basketball player I may have ever seen.
camouflage point guard because
Yes.
he's nothing but a 2 guard.
Nothing but.
But I like it.
He's not even that. He's a bench player masquerading as a contributor in the rotation.
off the bench, and I like Luke Kennard coming off the bench. They have depth.
Right.
And young Terrence Mann, you don't sleep on him.
Yeah.
He's turning into a basketball player.
He play. I like his game. I like his game.
Okay.
A lot of hustle. He does all the little things right.
And reportedly, the Clippers are also into the buyout market because they are going for broke.
You got to.
Hey, they got to. So reportedly, they are in on your man Andre Drummond. We'll talk about him in just a couple of minutes here.
I would love to see Andre Drummond sign with either the Nets or the Clippers.
Reportedly, they're still in on LaMarcus Aldridge, the ex-Spur, who has hit the buyout market, right?
Those are the two. I've never seen two guys command more attention in the buyout market than LaMarcus Aldridge and Andre Drummond.
Okay.
If you didn't know better, you swear Drummond was Shaq and LaMarcus Aldridge was David Robinson.
But that's what happens with the buyout market. I get it. But our man Chris Haynes, we had on yesterday for Yahoo, is reporting there are 6 teams interested in Andre Drummond, including the Nets and the Clippers and obviously the Lakers.
Right.
And the Knicks are now in that derby, and the Knicks actually have easily the most money they could pay for whoever they wanted, whichever these buyouts that they want.
Right, but do you want to blow money on Andre Drummond? The Knicks are a bubble team. When you watch them play, they play hard. They're a team that's really 2 superstars away from contending for a championship.
Okay?
I mean, which is saying a lot, but still, when you watch them play, they go hard.
Be a problem for your Lakers.
That can be a problem for the Clippers, too. That can be a problem from anybody, considering they're $50 million under the cap. Plus, they can give him more than anybody else can, and they can say, well, look here, next year, you play well. But I think here's the thing that Andre needs to understand. If you win a title, the money's going to be there. What if they go say, oh, you won a title, you didn't come here with us, we don't want you now? So him winning a title will only increase his value, even if it's not the Knicks. It shows that, you know what, he can play in a system. He's more than just, a space eater. He can contribute on a winning team that can win a championship. So I think his value he would greatly increase if he were to go to a team that's going to compete for a title.
Well, you're saying that because there's a potential that he could sign with the Lakers. If he signs with the Clippers or the Nets, will you still be saying that, Shannon Sharp? God forbid if Andre Drummond goes down with an injury. Will you be one of the guys who now changes your narrative and says, well, he should have signed with the Knicks for the money? Or are you going to keep that same energy and say he should try to get a championship, quote unquote? Or he should have tried to compete for a championship?
My bottom line to what happened yesterday. What happened in the bubble to my Clippers, they're looking ahead to your Lakers, and they think, we got this, and they just flex their muscles and stick their chests out, and they just pulverize the Denver Nuggets and go up 3-1 on them. And then what happened? Disaster struck.
They collapse. Kawhi, Paul George collapse.
Okay, so question to you. If Rajon Rondo had been a Clipper in the bubble during that series against the Nuggets, do you think they collapse? Because I'm a big no on that.
We can't do that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Rajon Rondo would have steadied the ship. It was obvious that that team was in desperate need of a leader, and Kawhi Leonard is not a verbal leader.
I mean, do you think Kawhi has the second ring if KD doesn't tear his Achilles and Clay doesn't rupture his knee? Nobody believes that Toronto was beating Golden State, a healthy Golden State. So we can't do hypothetical. This is what we know. They should have been able to close. You up 3-1. You got up 3-1 without Rondo.
And they got up 3-1.
That's a good point.
In dominating fashion.
Okay, so what happened?
They got big double-digit leads in all 3 games.
And
it wasn't like they went to the buzzer in all 3 games and were just hanging on for dear life.
What happened is the Clippers didn't like each other. They had a couple of cancers in the locker room, and as soon as things started to go bad, it was like a bad relationship. As soon as, the couple starts arguing over something that seems to be minuscule, like washing the dishes, they're ready to break up with each other because that's what they always wanted to do from the start. That's what happened to the Clippers.
In commanding position to close it out in 5, 6, and 7.
Dominating of a fashion as they got up, they went out like some buzzards.
Okay? Rondo will put a stop to that. Head of snake. There's a new coach on the floor named Rajon Rondo. He will be the eyes and ears of Ty Lue on the floor. You know it, and I know it.
So Kawhi gonna be accepting of that?
Well, he better be.
He has to be. Why wouldn't he be? I'm sure that Kawhi wanted Rajon Rondo from before the season to come join the team. Do you think that Kyle Lowry was some type of pussycat who let people walk all over him? Kyle Lowry and Kawhi Leonard had their little issues at the beginning of Kawhi's tenure with the Raptors because, of course, Kawhi was replacing Kyle Lowry's quote-unquote best friend. So, they had to work through their problems. I'm sure that if there are issues with Rajon Rondo and Kawhi Leonard on the Clippers, they'll have to be sat down by Ty Lue. That's his job as the coach, and they'll have to work through it. If your intention is to win a championship, you have to pull out that bullshit, those personal feelings aside.
What about Paul George?
Well, they're going to have thicker skin because they're going to get earfuls from the guy who, as you say, shoots straight. And he's going to shoot them right between the eyes, right? Both of them.
But Skip, if you remember what happened when somebody shot Kawhi Leonard straight, he shot it down and says, "Get me up out of here."
Oh, that's how you're going to frame that situation now, Shannon Sharp? We need to run back the tape on Shannon Sharp's original assertions about what happened between Kawhi Leonard and the Spurs, because I remember his perspective being diametrically opposed to what he's trying to assert right now. Kawhi Leonard did not get upset with the Spurs because they quote-unquote shot it to him straight. He got upset with them because they basically tried to impugn his character as an athlete and as a competitor. That's what happened with that.
Antonio tried to put him down and shoot him straight, bro. That's what happened.
Well, that was Greg Popovich. This is Ty Lue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was when Poppin' bitch declared the code red on Kawhi Leonard and sent out his, his sergeants in arms, Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili. And from that point on, Kawhi Leonard realized that he could not trust anybody. At least not anybody in the Spurs organization.
Okay.
And this is a team that Kawhi knows is right on the verge of winning it all with him as the centerpiece. It doesn't take away from his glory. He will get fed the basketball. In fact, I think he will see right away he's going to get better shots in better spots than he ever did, because half the time, to my fury, I have to watch Kawhi Leonard dribble into a shot, and if you have to keep doing that, you're going to lose. I'm sorry.
Yes, but that's the thing. Doc said,
well, you're going to lose playing that style of basketball if you don't have that assertive personality, if you're not the leader. I think that the real problem is not necessarily just that Kawhi dribbles into his shots, because Kobe and Michael did that. The real problem is that he does not have that forceful personality to back it up and have his his natural inclinations and his persona trickle down to the rest of his teammates. They just watch him dribble, and they become as seemingly apathetic as he appears to be facially. It rubs off on his teammates. So they need someone in the locker room who can become impassioned.
Know how good Kawhi could be as a facilitator. Yes, for a play here or there. But to do that 38 minutes a game, like LeBron has had to do his entire career. Paul George wants the ball in his hands. Yes, that's fine and good. But, bruh, that's not your game. Your game is not facilitating and scoring. You are a scorer and a wing defender.
Right.
Sometimes. Kawhi, I do believe Rondo will make it easy.
What are Kawhi Leonard's defensive metrics? Because if you let these guys tell you he's one of the worst defenders in the league now, I need to check out Kawhi Leonard's defensive metrics and his win shares.
Rondo will get them in the sets, and like you said, he won't have to spend all this time dribbling and trying to generate offense for someone else.
That's
now
correct.
He can go get to his point, his spot, and Rondo can get in the rock.
And the man who will benefit the most from Rondo's presence is the man who will chafe against him the most in the beginning, and that is Pandemic P.
Yeah.
Because he will do it out of love, but it'll be tough love. But he will shake him. He may just shake his shoulders and say,
well, Rondo's going to make or break Paul George. And the best thing that Rondo, Kawhi, and the Clippers franchise will have going for them in regards to Paul George and what could potentially be an explosive situation in the locker room is that Paul knows that this might be his last leg as an athlete when it comes to how he's perceived as a competitor. So he's going to have to rise to the occasion, even if it means that Rondo's going to have to drag him along, as Michael Jordan would say.
You are better than this, because he is better than this.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, for a while last night he was 10 for 26, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because it's wrong. He's a better player than that.
Well, the problem with Paul is that he takes a lot of step-back threes. He takes a lot of bad shots. Like, the metrics guys tell you that it's better to take a step-back 25-foot three than it is to take a mid-range jump shot because of the value of the shot. But it's really not. Shot selection is about getting to your spots and making sure that you're taking the most proficient and efficient shot possible for you.
Loses focus. He loses faith. He loses confidence in himself. Rondo will literally shake him and say, no, snap out of it. You're Paul George.
He's the ultimate street shooter, Skip.
Yeah.
We saw what happened in the first game, opening night.
Yeah.
He was ice cold in the first half, and then he couldn't miss in the second half. We watched him in the All-Star game, Skip. He couldn't miss. I'm talking about he was taking between the legs, behind the back, threes in people's face. That's who he is.
Hey, Paul George is a huge talent.
He
is a huge, at least a top 10 in the league talent. Just talent.
Skip, yes, I mean...
I remember I did a video comparing the combination of Paul George and Kawhi to the combination of Jordan and Scottie. And some cats, felt a certain type of way when I said that Paul George, in my view, had a better overall offensive repertoire than Scottie Pippen. Well, he does. He has better range, and he's a more consistent mid-range shooter than Scottie Pippen was. The difference is that Scottie was a better finisher at the rim than Paul George is. And of course, a slightly better defender. But Paul George is a better overall offensive player than Scottie Pippen was.
Guy that's 6'8", can shoot the mid-range, can shoot the three, can get to the rack. He's 85% shooting from the free throw line. Yes, he's extremely talented. And he's better now than he was before he broke his leg. And we thought like he broke his leg, like, damn, is he going to ever be able to come back?
True.
He'd come back better.
Yeah.
But it just, Skip, like I said, all this don't matter to me. I want to see him do.
Yeah, Skip. None of this matter to me. You can talk all that shit you want to talk. Got me here complimenting Paul George. But if that man from Akron, 6'9", 255 pounds of pure, unadulterated, uncut, sexual chocolate, come back from that little ankle injury he got, ain't nobody fuck with us, Skip Bayless.
In the playoffs. That's what everybody wants to see. Now, we've seen it early in his career in Indiana. Skip, we like, okay, LeBron got a sure enough rival in the East. And it never really blossomed after that, 2014 in Indiana. It never really blossomed again.
Nope.
Because what happened is the Pacers' locker room fell apart because they were all bopping each other's white girls. That's what happened with that.
Never played that well in the playoffs again. So we're going to see. I mean,
Damn, Skip. Why you breathing all hard into the microphone like that, like you damn Darth Vader? Calm down.
You got Rondo. That's what you wanted. You've been hoping and praying, staying up late at night.
Final.
He said Skip was hoping and praying, staying up late at night. God, please. I never ask you for much. I don't even talk to you that much. I prefer the horn god, but please, if you exist, please help the Clippers get Rajon.
To the championship puzzle. Rajon Rondo. He is made for this team at this moment.
Skip up there dressed up like he an OG for the Bloods.
Putting a 1,000-piece puzzle together back in 3 months.
Well, we'll see about that. You got way more problems than I have because
I agree. A lot of the Laker fans are just chilling, acting like everything is hunky dory. It's not.
1,000 problems.
Guess what? We got the problem solver. Go James.
Go James.
If there's a problem that has to do with basketball, Go James can figure it out.
Who may be out until May.
Don't worry about you worried about that. But I tell you what. But when we come back, see that.
Skip, he gonna rise from the ashes like a phoenix. You'll see.
Dad might not be home. Grandpa might not be home.
Yeah.
But if you've been acting a fool, you already know when he get there, it'll be played. He might not come back till May. But when he come back,
really, everybody's in trouble.
Yeah, a heap of it.
Really,
a heap of it.
You're in trouble.
Kawhi don't want to see him.
Rondo just went to the
Paul
basement.
George don't want to see
Rondo.
Actually, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard guard LeBron James better than any duo in the NBA. I don't think that LeBron has had one good shooting performance against the Clippers in the last 2 seasons.
But let me tell you what you're going to do. I already know what you're going to do. LeBron James got the biggest break. Solomon Hill, it was a blessing in disguise. Just like the when the pandemic hit and he got that break. That was the best thing ever happened. You're gonna find a reason to try to discredit, but I won't let you.
And you've already got the.
Well, we already know what your excuse is going to be, Shannon Sharp. Your excuse is going to be, name a great player who had to go against 3 super teams, Skip Bayless. San Antonio Spurs with Ginobili, Parker, and Duncan, and Kawhi. Then you got the Golden State Warriors with KD, Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Now you got the Brooklyn Nets with Harden and KD and Kyrie. Never in history, Skip Bayless. That's why we got swept. You heard me, Skip. That's why we got swept by a record margin, okay? Yes, we lost every game by average margin of 35 points, but it's because of the super teams.
The excuse you've had in your career is LeBron just doesn't have enough help. We struck out at the trade deadline and in the buyout market. We struck out.
You watch.
Thank you, Skip. That's also going to be one of his excuses. Oh, we don't have enough help. He's acting right now. He's acting like it don't matter that the Lakers did not make any acquisitions. But come the playoffs, if the Lakers get knocked out, he's going to be the first one claiming that LeBron did not have enough help.
You watch him. I bet my homeboy. I said 16 games. What do you think their record will be? He said, I think they'll be 5-11, maybe 6-10. I called him back again yesterday. I said, what you think their record gonna be? He said 2-14, maybe.
Skip, look, I'm thinking about suiting up for the Lakers. I gotta keep him above water till my baby get back.
I said, okay. Now you're talking.
Well, let me put my mic down.
Shannon Sharp, I have news for you. The average NBA team that has a superstar, if they lose all of their superstars at once, they're probably going to go 2-14. So this narrative, like LeBron James is keeping these bums above water, even when he was playing, they were barely a 500 team, and that's a fact. Without AD this year, they've been 11-10.
One more time, let's show it off, shake it off.
Hold on, you got what you call it? You got a Reggie Jackson jersey?
Reggie Jackson?
Reggie Jackson #1.
This is me. I'm #1, man. No!
No! You're not wearing it under your suit right now. You're pretty excited about the jersey. I saw you post the picture and the hat as well. This is an excited and optimistic Skip.
Yo, Skip be killing me, man. When he take them Instagram photos, this dude is a trip.
For you guys.
Jenny Taft gave me that hat. That's a true story.
That's what I thought. Yes, I finally got a gift correct. Yes, Skip. Thank you very
Jenny
much.
Taft gave me that hat.
Shannon?
I ain't getting no hat. I ain't getting no
I
Laker
was
hat.
just feeling like I got called out there. I have not given you a Lakers hat. And maybe the Lakers, they missed out on their best champ.
But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers. I think that the Rajon Rondo acquisition is going to help the Clippers. At the very least, I hope it does. I hope that it helps them get to the finals, because once again, I think that that would be the best finals for those of us who actually enjoy basketball, that being the Nets versus the Clippers, and may the best team win.